Good morning, friends. We have finished two components of renal disorders. That was vascular disorders of urinary system and tubulointerstitial diseases, which included acute and chronic pyelonephritis, nephrosclerosis, and all. So this is the last component of renal pathology. Especially, we will focus on the glomerular diseases. As I already told you that the surgical aspect of glomerular disorders we will learn in surgery, but as far as medical component of the glomerular diseases is very important because each of them are having their own etiology, own prognostic factors and therapeutic aspect. They are having their own course of disease and sequelae and complications. So it's important for us to learn each and every glomerular diseases in spite of they are represented by a syndrome or a complex group of symptoms, etc. What I told you last time that each and every glomerular diseases are having their own specific presentations, but still few presentations are common for few of the glomerulonephritis, and that's why fine learning as well as subclassification of glomerulonephritis is must. Uh, Previously, we discussed that only renal biopsy with H&E stain is not adequate to diagnose glomerulonephritis. So, is and when we are collecting biopsy for the kidney disorders, we have to proceed for 3-4 more steps. We are staining them by H&E stain. We try to find out the basic components of this vascular stuff, and then we proceed for the spatial stains like PAS or reticulin stain, etc., to find out certain more proteinous component which can be highlighted by the spatial stains. Immunofluorescent microscopy is very much important for the diagnosis of glomerular diseases because this glomerular stuff is known to filter the various types of components like proteins and whereas anions, cations and solutes. Whenever there is damage to any component of those glomerulus, it will lead to the either excretion of the unusual proteinous material in the urine, or there is deposition of this unusual proteinous material on the various components of the glomeruli. This various component of glomeruli can be seen by fluorescent microscopy according to the deposition of the proteinous material. This proteinous material can be antigen. Antigen can even be exogenous or endogenous. It can be antibody. It can be antigen antibody complexes even, or it can be adherent to the complement component also. So accordingly, the fluorescent imparts on this glomerular membranes, and we can see various type of patterns in fluorescent microscopy, which is very much helpful to diagnose these various components and various subtyping of the glomerulonephritis. Fourth one, that is electron microscopy. Electron microscopy is very much helpful in certain disorders where histopathological simple H&E stain, PAS stain and fluorescent microscopy fail to diagnose anything which is required for the subclassification of glomerulonephritis. So today we will start with the basic component of the glomerular diseases, and then we will follow for the discussion of individual glomerulonephritis. Just go through these 5 questions. Just we are recollecting what were the part of nephron. Just recollect. It was a tuft of capillaries. It was surrounded by the membrane. It is composed of the endothelial component which is fenestrated, food processes and all that thing you must recollect if you will read again. Structure of glomerulus we must know. and we must know layer of filtration before we enter in the various disorders of the glomerulonephritis. Juxtaglomerular apparatus we have already discussed. What is nephrin? That also we have discussed. It is a proteinous material which forms a mesh, a ચાળણી, આપણે ગુજરાતીમાં જેને ચાળણી કહીએ ને તે, and that ચાળણી is responsible to stop the filtration or to promote the filtration of various components which are present in the blood circulation. Azotemia and uremia we have already discussed. Uremia is the condition where biochemical markers are high with clinical presentation, while in case of azotemia, you will find out only raised creatinine and urea. So, just a revision of your glomerulus, right? Food processes are equally important. If any damage to food processes, it will lead to various nephritis. If there is damage to endothelial covering, it will lead to various nephritis. If there is a deposition of certain substances on various components of the basement membrane, it will lead to hampering in the function of kidney. Or mesenchyme. If mesenchyme is damaged by any type of the antigen antibody complexes or antibodies, or sometimes cell mediated immunity also, then it will lead to various type of glomerulonephritis. Once again I am repeating that each and every glomerulonephritis is having its own onset, course and progress and response to therapy. So it is important to learn each and every glomerulonephritis. As I told, this was an introductory aspect of glomerular disorders. Now we will proceed for the pathogenesis of the glomerular diseases in toto. In individual glomerulonephritis, we will discuss out the etiological component individually also. Mechanism for the glomerular diseases is usually I explain that it is immune mechanism. Either antigen absolutely deposited on the glomeruli or filtrated abnormally. Antigen antibody reactions is possible, which is in type 2 immune reaction or type 3 immune complex reaction in the form of antigen antibody immune complex deposition. Ultimately, wherever it will deposit, it will damage the membrane, it will damage the capillary, it will damage the fenestrums, it will damage the podocytes also. So these are the various, and I told that cell mediated immunity is sometimes also responsible for various types of the glomerular diseases. And these antigens may be exogenous, this antigen may be endogenous. When it is exogenous, it may be in the form of biological agents. When it is endogenous, it may be in the form of autoimmune reaction. Podocyte injury, once a very crucial and very common condition where you will find out a podocyte injury without any reason, and this is a very common glomerulonephritis which is seen in the pediatric age group. Or lastly, you may find out a massive nephron loss. This nephron loss may be inherited condition, Alport syndrome, Fabry syndrome. These two syndromes are responsible, inherited as a part of inherited component of glomerulonephritis. Before we discuss about the common presentation of glomerulonephritis, dear friends, let us discuss out a classification of the glomerulonephritis. Broadly, we can divide glomerulonephritis in various ways. One, that is onset of the disease. So it is acute glomerulonephritis and chronic glomerulonephritis. It depends upon the course and complications of the glomerulonephritis. If it is sudden onset, if it terminates into the acute renal failure, it will be labeled as an acute glomerulonephritis. If the course is slow, progressive, and it terminates into the chronic renal failure, it will be labeled as a chronic glomerulonephritis. Second classification is local glomerulonephritis and systemic glomerulonephritis, or you can say primary glomerulonephritis and systemic glomerulonephritis. Certain glomerulonephritis due to any reason will affect will targeted only on the renal function and directly damages the glomeruli, it will be labeled as an primary glomerulonephritis, or you can say local glomerulonephritis. And the glomerulonephritis which occurs due to the underlying certain systemic disorders, that will be labeled as secondary glomerulonephritis or systemic glomerulonephritis, where you will find out various types of autoimmune conditions, which starts from the commonest condition like diabetes and it ends as a rarest condition of the autoimmune condition like Sjogren's syndrome. SLE can lead to the glomerulonephritis. Goodpasture syndrome can lead to the glomerulonephritis. Von Eschen's purpura also can lead to the glomerulonephritis, but all of them are having primary disorders of systemic autoimmune condition. The primary glomerulonephritis, which is targeted, which is focused absolutely on the renal parenchyma, are having various type of etiological components, and they are usually certain bacteria, certain parasites, certain cancer antigens, and etc. can lead to the glomerulonephritis. As we have already discussed in the first lecture, that renal diseases can be presented by various types of symptoms. Commonest symptom is proteinuria, hematuria, azotemia, uremia, rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, acute renal failure, chronic renal failure, and two type of syndromes. These syndromes are very much important because they are the very much important and very useful component of the various presentations of glomerulonephritis. They are nephrotic syndrome and nephritic syndrome. Dear friends, as far as your practical aspect is concerned, as far as your viva is concerned, as far as your theoretical aspect is concerned, you must know each and every component of nephrotic syndrome and nephritic syndrome. Nephritic syndrome will be presented as a hematuria. You will find out the RBC cast in the urine also. Then hypertension, where you will find out the salt retention and periorbital edema as a presentation of the hypertension. Azotemia is once again one of the components of the nephritic syndrome, which will be presented in the form of increased biochemical parameters of serum creatinine and urea, oliguria, and mild proteinuria, because it damages directly to the endothelial capillaries, and so the system which will be activated, that is the renin angiotensin system, and so ultimately the patient will proceed for the hypertension and hematuria. So proteinuria is a minimum damage to the glomerular tuft, and there is a less than 3.5 gram per deciliter excretion of protein is observed. Nephrotic syndrome is a classical presentation of severe proteinuria, more than 3.5 gram per deciliter excretion of the albumin. Absolutely, albumin is usually excreted in this severe proteinuria. And due to this severe proteinuria, various sequences will start, and these sequences are in the form of hypoalbuminemia. We can very well understand if we are losing the protein in the urine, absolutely there will be deficiency of the albumin in the blood. This severe proteinuria and hypoalbuminemia will be reflected in the form of edema because of the water retention in the body, and due to albuminuria and low albuminuria, there will be mobilization of the stored fat to compensate with the deficiency of the albumin in the blood, and that will be reflected in the form of hyperlipidemia. Can you understand? Protein will be mobilized, it will be excreted, so blood protein level will be reduced, and to compensate this, the lipid, which is the fat which has been stored in our body, will be mobilized to the blood to generate protein inside the body, and ultimately this excess of lipid in the blood will also lead to the excretion of excess of fat in the urine in the form of fat globules. So proteinuria and lipiduria are the characteristic in the urine examination, and hypoalbuminemia and hyperlipidemia are the characteristic finding in the blood examination, and patient presented with a classical appearance of puffy eyelid and generalized edema. I already narrated. These are the other presentations of glomerulonephritis. Nephrolithiasis is a condition which we can explain in surgical lesions of the renal disorders. Now, primary glomerulonephritis. The basic mechanism is in and around the kidney. I explained that the nephritic syndrome and nephrotic syndromes are very important presentations of the various types of glomerulonephritis. Glomerulonephritis can be classified again. The glomerulonephritis presented by nephrotic syndrome, glomerulonephritis presented by nephritic syndrome. Another classification is the glomerulonephritis of the childhood, glomerulonephritis of the adulthood. So, on the basis of the course of disease, on the basis of the duration of the disease, on the basis of the etiology, and on the basis of the presentation, and on the basis of the age incidence, glomerulonephritis will be classified. Here are the various types of glomerulonephritis which are presented on the basis of nephrotic syndrome. So, edema, albuminuria, lipiduria, hypoalbuminemia, and hyperlipidemia. First and commonest condition is minimal change disease, which will be labeled as a lipoid nephrosis or nil disease. Why? Why nil disease? Why minimal change? Because it won't show any histopathological changes in the renal biopsy. We have to reach up to the electron microscopy to find out the lesion. Till that, no deposition, no excess excretion, no structural changes in HE stain, no in PAS or reticulin stain. If you will see in electron microscopy, you will find out damage to the podocytes. It is a disorder of pediatric age group. 2 to 6 years of age is a peak age, and patient is having selective proteinuria, albumin. Light microscopically, as I already told, normal glomeruli with lipid accumulation in the PCT cell which cannot be diagnosed by H&E stain. But the electron microscopy shows a classical podocyte effacement. Immunofluorescent, it is negative. So only electron microscopy can diagnose. But in our infrastructure where we do not have electron microscope, where we are not having such advanced conditions, nephrotic syndrome, presentation of nephrotic syndrome with exclusion of other conditions, we can label it as a minimum change disease. Friends, we need to know this disease very much because the prognosis is excellent in this condition and it responds fantastically to corticosteroid therapy. When you go to pediatric OPD or pediatric indoor patient, you will find out that many children are coming with a notebook. Why they are bringing this notebook? The clinicians write down their protein excretion in the urine every day. They write down other parameters of the patient on every day. On that basis, they change the therapy and they recover or they cure the patient. See, these are the figures. You can see the podocytes completely effaced, complete effacement of the podocyte and no H&E change, absolutely normal glomeruli. Right? Basement membranes are absolutely normal, but podocytes are effaced. So the gap between the podocytes, which shows the nephrin component as a filtration plant has been lost, and that is responsible for the abnormal excretion of the proteins in the urine and presentation as a nephrotic syndrome. Membranous glomerulonephritis is a condition seen in 30 to 60 age of year. Nephrotic syndrome is a classical presentation. It is subclassified. In the 85% of present, it is idiopathic, where the autoantibody against podocytes have been found out, and other causes are drugs. Certain infections like hepatitis B, hepatitis C, syphilis, malaria, etc., or systemic diseases as I narrated, SLE, diabetes mellitus. but 15% of patients are having underlying disorder. Rest of the 85% patients are idiopathic. Patients are of age of 30 to 60 years, so no possibility of minimal change disease here, right? So this is a present glomerulonephritis of adult presented by nephrotic syndrome. Only for 15% will show the etiological aspect, 85% idiopathic. Biopsy, if you will take, there is a diffuse thickening of the capillary wall. Immunofluorescent microscopy, you will find out glomerular in linear pattern in the IgG and C3. Electron microscopically, you will find out subepithelial deposit along bone marrow basement membrane with effacement of the podocyte food processes. A classical pattern in the immunomicroscope, electron microscopically, you will find out that is the spike and dome pattern because of the deposition of the antigen antibody complexes. See, one more question for your MCQ. This condition usually do not respond to corticosteroid therapy. So the course, it may be either spontaneous remission, thank God patient will recover without any consequences, or there is persistent proteinuria. If patient will not recover, then there are chances of end stage renal disease in the form of chronic renal failure. See, podocytes one again damaged, extended, and you will find out food processes with effacement, thickened basement membrane, a classically thickened basement membrane, and subepithelial depositions of proteinous material showing bumps and spikes. Focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. Once it is sclerosis, means it is a chronic process. It is focal. That means only some of the glomeruli are affected. See, there are 10 glomeruli in one focus, out of which 5 are affected, 5 are not affected. So it is focal and segmental. Only a portion of the glomerular tuft is exhibit the sclerosis. Out of that affected 5 glomeruli, that all 5 glomeruli are not affected. Only and only one of the component of affected glomeruli shows the changes. So it is in focal, few of the glomeruli, and segmental, only if one of the component of this glomeruli are affected. Once again, it is idiopathic or related to loss of renal tissue, pre-existing glomerular diseases like IgA nephropathy, sickle cell anemia, patients those who are on heroin abused patients, or immunocompromised patient, either because of the seropositive case, AIDS, or morbid obesity. This is a rare condition, but it has got a very classical appearance microscopically and very special type of etiological component like sickle cell anemia, heroin abused. So we have to keep this condition in our mind. Biopsy will see the focal segmental sclerosis, hyalinization of glomeruli as a part of sclerosis, and immunofluorescent microscopy will show deposition of IgM and C3 in sclerotic segment. Electron microscopy show effacement of food processes in non-sclerotic segments and increased mesangial matrix in sclerotic segment, which can very well be explained, right? And the course of this disease is poor response to steroid, poor prognosis with the presentation of CRF, and high rate of recurrence in renal transplants, because the basic mechanism which is persistent in the body, either in the form of AIDS, in the form of morbid obesity, or in the form of sickle cell anemia, which are not treatable conditions. Variant of this focal segmental glomerulonephritis is collapsing glomerulopathy, where the prognosis is worst. See, this is one of the glomerulus which is affected. Rest of the glomeruli may be normal around, and only a component of the glomerulus is affected, which shows eosinophilic proteinous deposition in various components of the glomerular tuft. See the classical electron microscopic appearance. There is a granular deposit all throughout the glomerular tuft, or there is a linear deposition in the basement membrane. Basement membrane ma there is a continuous linear deposition you can find out. So friends, thank you so much. These were the glomerulonephritis which were presented by the nephrotic syndrome. Now we will switch over to the glomerulonephritis which are presented by nephritic syndrome. Once again we will classify them on the basis of age and course of disease. Thank you.